We live in a very, very divisive time, a time where many people have their views validated by the information they choose to ingest. There's a lot of reasons for this division, a lot of people and places to point that big old blame finger. But one person has been blamed quite a bit for spewing lies and conspiracies, and now that person, that source, has been kicked out of almost all of the major social media platforms. That man is Alex Jones.
September 11th was an inside job. The moon landings were staged. Democrats are running a child sex ring at a D.C. pizzeria. And the Sandy Hook school shooting.
It took me about a year with Sandy Hook to come to grips with the fact that the whole thing was fake.
Those are just some of the claims that have been made by InfoWars host Alex Jones. And on Monday, Facebook, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube wiped Jones' main content from their websites. The reason why? Facebook said Jones' content was removed because it glorified violence, and he used dehumanizing language to describe people who are transgender, Muslim, or immigrants. Apple said it booted Alex Jones because Apple doesn't tolerate hate speech. YouTube said Jones violated policies against hate speech and harassment. Jones is no slouch on any of these pages. He became a megastar on some of these pages. So he's going all in, mouth first, on how he views his now view from the internet sideline.
And mainstream corporate media, with its dying audiences, its dwindling audiences, are now engines of censorship and harassment against those that try to actually follow the Constitution and restore our republic, and who try to then shut down all of their competition. They are now terrorist organizations, most of them on the communist Chinese payroll.
Should this happen? That's the debate. It absolutely can happen without recourse, you need to know, as all of those companies are private and set their own rules and retain all rights to moderate who uses them and what content they put on there. Free speech cries do not apply here. So the better question is, should social media giants ban a man's claims or opinions? A man worth millions of dollars with millions of followers. They could just make a rule on their platforms saying no libel or slander permitted. And Jones could very well be in violation of that. Libel and slander are clearer lines. The rules are already out there for those. They aren't as clear when we're talking about hate speech. Look, it is hard to argue that Alex Jones is a person of high moral standing when he peddles in theories that are re-traumatizing the parents of the murdered kids at Sandy Hook, or theories that encouraged a gunman to take care of Pizzagate himself. But those aren't the questions. The question is, should Alex Jones be silenced?
One last thing, and maybe you noticed this, Twitter has not kicked Alex Jones off, and that's getting Twitter a lot of heat. But their CEO, Jack Dorsey, said the reason why is simple. Jones hasn't violated Twitter's rules. As always, we want your take as well. Let us know what you think about this whole thing on Twitter or on Facebook. If you go to either, use the hashtag BTN11.